Hi, I'm Tyler, and this is the Fox Valley Film Critics. In this episode of the show, we're going to be discussing the next in the lineup of the AFI's Top 100 American Films, Dr. Strangelove, followed by the newest Shane Black Predator film. Stay tuned. Hello, welcome to the show, brought to you by Groupthink Productions and FVTV. Joining us this week is fellow Rentex worker, Devin. How's it going, man?
Pretty good.
So
good to be here.
we both sport from the same abode work-wise, so
yeah,
he was kind enough to come join us for the show.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Sure thing. So first discussion for the episode is Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah.
What does your Kubrick backlog look like?
So well, let me start with, I'm more of a music person, but I have in the past about 3 years been getting more into film. So I do have a lot of big gaps in my film knowledge. But that being said, I have seen, I think the one Kubrick film I haven't seen is Barry Lyndon. So I've seen just about every other one. And I've liked them all, so.
Lyndon's the one everyone forgets.
Yeah.
I've seen half of Lyndon, so.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty long one too. But,
oh yeah, it's very.
But this one, this was the latest one that I had seen out of all of them. I watched it about a month ago, and then I rewatched it last night actually. But I think it's one of those films. The more you watch it, the more you can get out of it. As with every Kubrick film, I'd say.
Yeah, I noticed. This one definitely comes out of the early Kubrick years, so it was before everything kind of went down, where he started getting like enormous freedom with all of his films.
Yeah.
Because you kind of see right after he does Clockwork Orange, suddenly all of his films just go in a completely different direction. So 2001, Shining, Eyes Wide Shut, like those are all completely different than his old films. The old ones, they're very studio-esque. So
yeah.
Killing is just a noir thriller. It's not super stylized. Spartacus is very 1950s epic kind of filmmaking, and I know Kubrick apparently hated it. This definitely feels like the most outlandish out of all of his early 50s films. Like, it does not feel like a 1950s film. The content in this, it feels like a person in the 1970s made a film.
Looking back.
Yeah, making it parodying 50s films. Because there's more explicit references to sexuality and nuclear destruction and really edgy jokes in this than like any other films. Like, the only director I can think of that has anything this edgy is Billy Wilder, like Some Like It Hot. But even there, like, the film was purposefully edgy, and this one, it just feels completely natural. It's such a different kind of film.
Yeah, it was. It's very. I guess the more you delve into each character, the more kind of ludicrous the whole thing becomes, because you're kind of like, well, wait. So the general who calls the Plan R, I think it was called, that is total all-out nuclear warfare. The more you watch him, and I think with Kubrick's kind of, I know that his filming style, he would it's just the shots that he would use to show the general, they're always like, it would be like a lower shot and he's like smoking the cigar. It just makes him look just very unhinged, and just things like that in the movie really stood out to me.
The more you look around in this movie, the more absurdity you find. I was watching this the other night with our executive producer, and I think this was the first time he had seen it in HD, because every version, I guess, was in standard definition. If you look at the table, whenever they're in the giant press room, not the press room, the war room, just look at the table. There are folders all over the table, and they all have absurd phrases on them, like like War Megadeth or something like that. It's just the thing is on. Yeah, you don't notice it the first time you watch it, but it's just this absurd detail, and it's right in the forefront too. You just don't. You're not just not looking at it.
Hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, if you're looking at it, it's like, what the heck is a Megadeth?
Yeah, what is? What's going on?
This might be like the funniest film I've ever seen. Like there's
really?
So much just beautiful absurdity in it. I love the scene to death where they call the Russian president, and it just turns into this really like chatty conversation. Where it's like, Mr. President, no, I don't call you very often. No, I like talking to you. I'd call you any day of the week. Why don't I call you more often?
Just an insecure president.
Yeah, insecurity is like the theme of the film. Like every character has just like talks constantly about impotency, just constantly, and like in the end, I don't want to spoil like what the final speech of the film is with Dr. Strangelove, but that kind of plays into it where like these characters clearly are not happy or insecure, so they're all just on they all just had this itchy trigger finger. And they're all just prepared to blow up the world in an instant. And all of a sudden, one guy decides, I'm going to blow up the world.
Yeah, I'm going to actually do it,
Yeah, and so it just turned, I just love the scenario in this where a guy just goes rogue, a general just goes rogue and decides, lock the base down, we're bombing Russia.
And I think another thing, too, that I noticed towards the end of the movie, I just thought back, I was like, wait. There was only, I think, one woman in the movie the whole time, and I think
it was like in her underwear too.
Yeah, she was George C. Scott's either girlfriend or wife, or But I thought that was interesting.
She was the secretary.
Yeah, the secretary.
Because she was taking his phone call like completely naked. Like
he was just in the bathroom, like get it for me, or whatever. But I found that interesting too, because I wonder, or I'm sure that Kubrick had that in mind, that just a group of men that don't know what to do and they're very insecure. I'm gonna end the world like that. Like when you get powerful enough, like if there's no other voices in the mix, it can be tough.
You were saying before the show that this actually had some sort of effect on national security in terms of who has access to things.
I'm not sure the exact policy, but I know in the 60s, whenever it was released, that it actually changed the U.S.'s policy to make it so that no individual person would like have access to the code like how the general did. How like he's the only one who knows it, and then he killed himself in the bathroom. So we won't have that situation ever.
That's not the first time. I remembered in the 80s they premiered that television movie the day after, and within a week of that movie premiering, the U.S. president called Russia and was like, "Yeah, let's denuclearize slightly because this isn't going to end well for anyone involved."
Yeah.
Power of cinema, man. You can change foreign policy with a movie.
Yeah, just the realism and especially I found it interesting because the movie came out kind of in the heart of the Cold War.
This would have been late 50s, I think. I don't remember the exact date.
The Cold War was what, from basically after World War II?
1947 essentially to 1991.
91, when the war, That I wonder, because he kind of played on Russian stereotypes, like the president was called and he was drunk, and but I think he played stereotypes kind of all around, like
because George C. Scott is he's playing Patton before he played Patton essentially.
And, what was the pilot's name? I forgot.
I don't know, but he had a thick drawl.
I think he played a very stereotypical American as well.
He gets the best shot of the whole movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but the movie's most famous image is the man riding the bomb down to the ground. So, yee-hoo! Yee-hoo! It's famous, man. And even if you haven't seen the movie, you've probably seen allusions to that meme.
Yeah, it's probably the most iconic shot in the whole movie, I'd say.
I know. They made fun of it in Simpsons.
Yeah. Of course.
We built this bomb to drop in beatniks on the 50s, and then Homer just imagines being dropped on beatniks and riding the bomb all the way down.
But there's even the cover, like there's many innuendos, like you were saying, just like allusions to like stuff that you typically wouldn't see in 50s movies, or if it was, it would be very hidden, and you'd have to get it to understand it.
Yeah, the title is very long. Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb.
And I wonder the exact reason for him to choose Dr. Strangelove as the title, because
I mean, it's all around that character, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not actually in the movie that much.
Yeah, he's only in
like he only has like 2 scenes, but he's like the most memorable character in the movie. It's the ex-Nazi scientist who famously can't walk, who runs around trying desperately to stop himself from giving the Heil Hitler salute constantly.
Like he can't contain himself. He's just sitting there, like, holding himself back. And
he gets 3 or 4 of the best lines of the movie just in his scenes alone, which is why you just include him because you can.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's important to the film because he ends up having the final speech.
Yeah.
That kind of offers
a solution.
A solution, not a good solution.
But just to bring it right back to how it was.
Or we'll rebuild society in our own image.
Yeah.
But you were saying that that was Peter Sellers, or?
Yeah. So I found out after that Peter Sellers played Dr. Strangelove and Mandrake. I'm pretty sure.
Which I did not notice because I'm bad at.
Yeah, I didn't connect the dots either until I looked up the casting and saw. But yeah, he did a really good turn as a very, at least sounding stereotypical German accent.
That's all the time we have for this segment. Join us for the following segment. We'll be talking about The Predator. Stay tuned. Hello, welcome back to the show. Quick correction on my part. There were 3 Peter Sellers roles in Dr. Strangelove. The President, Mandrake, and Strangelove. So, Austin Powers situation, I guess. Yeah. Cast him as everything.
Yeah.
Which is weird because there's one profile shot where you see both the characters at once, but apparently it wasn't Sellers in the background. Anyway, so, The Predator. You've been talking to me constantly about The Predator for the past week. So
I've been excited to get into this part, the Predator part.
Yes. I've had so many thoughts about this since I saw it, darn it. So what did you think about it?
So, also let me preface, going into the movie, I had only seen, I view it as I kind of just grew up in America where Predator existed, so I still know, like big scenes, like get to the chopper, get to like, do it now, kill me, I'm here, all that stuff, but I'd never seen the movies in their entirety. So I was kind of lost on like gauging exactly how this movie should stand up against those. So I kind of just tried to go into it with just fresh mind, just to see how I'd like it, and I was pretty disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, the Predator series is very strange. On one hand, the only one that's legitimately a very good movie is the first one. The first one is legitimately like almost perfect, but it also helps that every single one is self-contained. There's no real continuity between them. Most of them reference the first one tangentially. Yeah. So they're like, oh, there was that time where they met that creature in the middle of the woods, but that's really the only continuity any of the films have with each other. Beyond that, they're all entirely self-contained, so that there is a benefit to that when you're going into these movies, that you don't have to know Predator lore. But Predator lore has never been thoroughly explained in the movies. Like there's clearly a lot of things that are implied about the Predator and his species and all of the things that make him work, but it's all explained just through the way it's expressed in the film. So it's you know he's an honor-bound creature because he won't fight a creature that is as strong as him on unfair terms, or you know about his technology because you get to see it physically played out in the films. So the Predator is coming from the guy who played one of the minor roles in the first film, Shane Black, who was an actor and a screenwriter in the 80s and 90s, and he's made a turn into directing in the last decade and a half. He did Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, he did The Nice Guys, and he did Iron Man 3. The first 2 are unabashedly great action comedies, and then Iron Man 3 is whatever you want it to be. So I went into this with sky-high expectations, willing to okay, I don't like the trailers, but it's a Shane Black. I have high hopes in this because he has not directed a bad movie yet. Oh my gosh, this is the worst film I've seen this year.
Yeah,
this is
it's very something else.
a train wreck. Like, how do you make a film this bad when you're this talented? Like, well, it's because film is a complicated medium and it's very, very, very easy to screw up. But it is so surreal seeing this movie. Like, there are some things I like in it. The gore is fun. There's a couple neat sequences and ideas, but it's this bizarre mishmash of ideas and concepts. And there's about a dozen characters that could get fleshed out interestingly with good actors, but none of them do. They all just turn into action people and then they all get slowly killed off one at a time in the final action beat. Yeah. It is just a complete mess beginning to end. That is so depressing.
Yeah, it was kind of unexpected. I mean, I didn't really have too many expectations going in, but I knew of the director. I haven't seen, other than Iron Man 3, I haven't seen the other two, but yeah, I kind of had some more expectations, and there was a lot more humor in it than I thought there would be. Versus, I mean, I know that humor has been spread out through all of them, but like this, seeing Michael, what was his name?
Keegan-Michael Key.
Keegan-Michael Key. I mean, I like his comedy, but he was just, I think he just fell flat in this movie.
I'm surprised he's not trying to do more dramatic roles now that his writing partner is an Oscar-winning director.
Seriously, like, where's his half of the genius?
Oh, I feel so bad for him. It's just like, he's off directing that. He's now going to be the host of The Twilight Zone, and Keegan-Michael Key is just on his own. He's like, oh, I was in Keanu. Yeah. You remember being in Keanu?
Yeah. Isn't that cat movie?
Yeah, that was the cat movie. the movie, the comedy about the world's cutest cat. But that was such a strange film. But when it comes to The Predator, I find myself in a position where I could have been the one person who would be the person who would stand up for anything in this movie. Like, I don't mind gratuitous comedy in modern films. I don't mind gratuitous violence. I just wanted something that was thematically coherent and held together. Yeah. And it doesn't. It's just a mess. And apparently 20th Century Fox reshot like a third of the film just because they didn't like the final version of it. Because apparently the original ending was supposed to be that the humans would team up with a team of good predators, and they would attack Area 52.
It seemed for a while in the movie that it was going that way because they determined that one of the predators wasn't acting, or was kind of trying to get them something, but then there's a larger predator that was kept advancing.
Oh, the reveal for that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. It's like, oh, the predators know that global warming is happening, and they're going to come down to Earth and take it over once all the humans are dead. So they're just trying to make this process speed up faster. So but this other predator apparently doesn't want that to happen.
It's the rogue one, and even though it's the rogue one that wants to help humanity, it's still just slashing people left and right.
Like, I know, what the heck?
It was very, I wasn't expecting any logical...
It murders an entire lab full of people for no reason. And then we find out he's supposed to be like the Martin Luther King of predators. Yeah. And it's like, what the heck is happening in this movie?
And I noticed that, how just what was I going to say?
I broke you. I'm sorry, the movie is broken.
I can't even think. But, what was I going to say? It was something, I think I lost it.
Have the floor.
It was a scene. It was one specific scene that was getting to me, that I kept thinking about as I watched the rest of the movie.
Was it early on?
Oh, it was okay. It was. So I noticed multiple times. It wasn't one specific scene. It was a couple times. They kept mentioning that the predators, they're misnamed. They should be called hunters. Did you catch that?
That was early on. That was like one of the annoying quips. Like, so when The Last Jedi came out, everyone was giving it crap that there's all this like annoying comedy in it, and I didn't mind that because I thought the film was at least thematically consistent. Here, it's just distracting. Like with this movie, every bit of the comedy just felt completely at odds because there's nothing else going on in it.
Yeah, it felt like there was the plot and then somebody distracting you from the plot.
And hey,
And
that's
then,
not even necessarily a bad thing. Like all the Marvel movies do that,
Mhm.
but they work because when they're cutting away from the dramatic plot, there's actually a dramatic plot to cut back to, and the comedy is okay. So you can get away with jumping between those tones if you know how to balance it.
Yeah.
This movie doesn't. This movie doesn't know how to balance anything.
Yeah, I think train wreck is the good phrase to use.
That's so depressing too, because you know this means that they're going to put Predator in like the bin for the next decade. Because it's like, oh well, we had the opportunity to make another one, but no one went and saw it, and it's like, yeah, because you made a bad movie.
And I wonder because I also caught a reference early in the movie that I think it was the main character who discovered that the predators were here. He said something like, "Yeah, predators like keep popping up ever since 1987 and then in the 90s." Like, kind of just references like that to the older movies. I couldn't tell if they were just references to reference or if they were like.
The thing about the predators that I think is interesting is that the predator is not an invasive species. He's just they're just individual guys that go down to planets with extremely powerful life forms and then get in fights with them. They're just like hunters or dude bros, or they're creatures that feel like they have to prove something. So they go down and they conquer species and try to find versions of them that match them in their intensity and their strength. And then if they can beat them, they take their skull and spine as a prize. And then obviously that serves some sort of proof in Predator society. And if they're going to do a good Predator sequel, I would love to see a Predator sequel that's just all about how that society works. It's like let's just do a whole Predator sequel about like societal expectations and meritocracy and things like that. We're a society that takes proving yourself to that extreme. That would be a super interesting idea. And but no, every single Predator movie is predators hunt you in the jungle, and like that's all. They've repeated that 4 times now. Like it worked in the first movie because you had John McTiernan, Die Hard, and best action director of the '80s working behind you. But when you don't have that, and when you're just trying to repeat the success of the first movie, and you don't think about what the actual like ethos of the Predator is supposed to be, you can just have a Predator that looks like the first Predator, except he's now supposed to be like the Martin Luther King of Predators. And then a bigger Predator shows up and kills him, and then now that's the Predator, except he's like 10 feet tall.
And like they didn't even seem to leave it open-ended. I didn't stay after the credits, but I don't think there was like a scene or anything.
Oh, there was. Well, it's not even that. They like the final scene of the film. They just reveal like what the Predator was bringing to Earth. But that's all the time we have for the segment. This movie stinks badly. Join us for the final segment where we'll be getting Devin's movie recommendation for the week. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the final segment. We're going to hand things over now for this week's movie recommendation.
All right, so for this week, wait, am I supposed to be looking at any camera?
Don't look at the camera.
Okay.
Just look at me. Look at this. Look at Yerk.
The skull. Stare into. No. So my recommendation is the movie Only God Forgives by Nicholas
Winding Refn.
Yeah, how you said it. I came across this movie probably about 6 months ago when I first saw it. I had seen what got me into his movies was the movie Valhalla Rising, actually.
Okay.
Which was, and then from there I saw Bronson. So I kind of knew of the director. I knew his style. So going into this, I wasn't like, I was as prepared as I think you could be with his films. But it's a very beautifully shot, just kind of very empty film, I think. Like there's a lot of Ryan Gosling just sitting there, just staring off. But it's very, I think he probably has like 20 lines in the film or so, but I think it's still worth the watch. It's about, I think it's around an hour and a half, hour 45, but Yeah, there's a lot of tensions. It almost reminds me of it has like the feel almost of like a Western in a way to me. Like an old, like 60s, 70s Western, but it's just set in Bangkok, so.
I'm kind of a Nicholas Winding Refn normie. I found him through Drive, which I think was where most people found him through, because that was kind of his big mainstream breakout hit film.
Yeah.
And then that came out like 2 years later, and it confused everyone horribly.
Yeah.
And then he did that horror film 2 years ago. I forget what it was called.
Was that a Neon Demon?
Yeah, Neon Demon.
I haven't seen that one, but I've been meaning to.
I don't know how that ranks. I haven't seen Valhalla Rising or Bronson yet, but I want to. I can't find a copy of Valhalla Rising anywhere, but
I highly recommend both of those.
I know I just borrowed a copy of Bronson from the library, so I'll hopefully watch that in a couple weeks.
Tom Hardy is very good in that one.
And I own the whole Pusher trilogy. I found a DVD copy of that.
Those
so.
I haven't seen the Pusher trilogy. That's one I've been meaning to.
I'm gonna cram those at some point soon, just because I want to watch all of his films. But I like Refn. He's
something. Yeah, just the way his shots, the contrast and colors, very interesting.
He's colorblind, so he has to do that in order to see the color contrast in his films. So.
Yeah, he's. I think he's some kind of master. It's something. It's hard for me to pinpoint down exactly.
I will give this to you. There's an interview online I found with William Friedkin, who was the director of The Exorcist and The French Connection. And he says, Refn says in the interview that Only God Forgives is my masterpiece. It's my greatest film. And William Friedkin was like, are you freaking kidding me? And it's like the best interview I've ever seen. So it's like, one of the great masters of 70s filmmaking is just like, what is this kid talking about? It is just beautiful to watch that.
Yeah, but Only God Forgives. It's kind of, I would say it's like a Oedipal Western kind of.
Oedipal is a good word for it. But if you haven't seen Refn's films yet, definitely do. That's all the time we have for this segment. You can find past recordings of the show on the Groupthink Productions YouTube page. You can find more of my written reviews at Geeks Under Grace. And you can follow me on Twitter at AntisocialCritI. That's critic without the C at the end. I'm Tyler with the Fox Valley Film Critics. Have a wonderful evening.
Hello? Great news. I found us an audition.
Morning, Gloria.
Wait, you got what? I found us a posting for an audition for this really cool sounding indie drama being made by this eccentric outsider artistic type.
You did? Where'd you find it?
Craigslist? Look, it'll be fine. I've done gigs like this before. We shoot a few weeks, you'll get a shot at a big role to show off to the casting guys, and I'll get the cash I need to stay in town for another month, okay?